and welcome to Little Learners. In today's video we are going to be talking about blending. So I have spoken about and demonstrated blending in previous videos, which I will link below, but I did have a request to make a video that was dedicated just to blending, just focusing on blending. And as you know, I like to try and grant as many requests as I can on my channel. If your child is learning to read and is trying to blend, whether they're having trouble with it or whether you just want to kind of know a little bit more about it, give this video a thumbs up so I know how many of you are trying to get to grips with this particular skill. So when a child or anyone learns how to read, there are certain skills that they need to be able to decode words, to be able to read them. So first of all, children need to be able to recognise letters and understand what their corresponding sound is. If you're not sure about that, then click the link above. Second, children need to be able to segment words. So when they see a group of letters together, such as in the word cat, they can segment it, which means to break it up. So reading k, a, t, k, a, t. Now when we do this, we often use one of my favourite kind of tools for doing this to get some action in there, robot arms. I think it's really good to use as many different kind of learning styles as possible. So we're going to go with a bit of movement. So when we're reading the word and segmenting it, we're going to do this. K, a, t. Just so that children get a real representation of how that word is being broken up. Next, once children have kind of mastered that, we move on to blending, which is sticking all of those sounds back together in order to read the whole word. K, a, t, and blend it, cat. Now blending is quite a tricky stage because if you think about it, when a child is looking at the word cat, they don't know that that word says cat. So they sound out the word, they say the letter sounds with their robot arms, but they have no idea what those sounds are supposed to make when you mash them all together. So a lot of children find this very tricky. It can be really frustrating for them because they can't do it yet, and admittedly it can be a bit frustrating for the adult as well because you're willing them to do it and they can't, and it's just something that as adults we completely take for granted because it's a skill that we have had for so long. So some things you can do to help your child support them when they're trying to do blending are as follows. Always lead by example. So when you're reading them a bedtime story, it's very important that you read to your child so your child can see you reading. Read as you normally would, but every so often when you get to a word such as cat or a really simple word, something that we call a CVC word that has a consonant, a vowel, a consonant, then sound it out in front of them. K, a, t, cat, so that they can see you doing that. Then, when you're reading together, get your child to segment and blend a word every so often. So when you're reading with them and they can't do the blending yet, don't try to get them to sound out every single word because it will get more and more frustrating and they will become very self-conscious about doing it and not being able to do it yet. So if you read with them and then every so often say, okay, let's sound out this word now. If a child is segmenting really well but is having trouble blending, then do it with them. So they segment, you say to them, okay, what do you think it's going to be if we put it all together? Let's say it again. And you can do it with them. It's really important that you don't expect them to just be able to do it straight away. And even if a child learns to blend and they're doing really well, sometimes they will come across a word that is a bit tricky or has a digraph in it, which are two letters that make one sound, and there's so many different rules involved that they will stumble on things occasionally, and it's just important that you're there to support them. So let's look at a word that has a digraph in it so you can see how we might read that word. So I'm going to choose the word think. Now this is a word that will probably come up in early reading fairly frequently, and it's a word that we can sound out. So we have the T and the H, the T and H, which together don't make T, H, they make Th, Th. So we're going to sound out like this. Th, I, N, K, think. Now when you hear it like that, it seems quite simple, But actually, converting the sounds that I've just made into a whole word is a very, very complex process that I and you have just become very accustomed to. So if a child is struggling, it's important to start with very, very simple words. You may want to start with some 2-letter words, and you could do this with flashcards, you could put post-it notes around the house, you could do a treasure hunt, those kind of things, to find these words and try and sound them out. Very similar to the games that I suggested in the sight words video that I posted recently. So if you have a word such as it, we sound out it. It. Now if a child is struggling to bring their hands together and put those sounds together, it may be that they're not quite ready for it yet, but if they've been doing it a little while and they're still struggling, then something you can do is play the speed game, which I just named myself, where you just speed up what you're saying. So it. So you speed it up, so eventually those sounds get closer and closer together and you start just saying the word. It can be really fun as well. You can of course do the same thing with longer words such as dog, dog. Something really important to remember is that if a child is tired, they're not going to be reading at their best, and actually they're going to get frustrated that they can't. It's very important that children enjoy reading, so if they're tired and you can just sense that they're really not feeling it right now, then put the book away and try it again at another time, or you take over and you read instead, so that they're still being able to engage in the book and the story and the words, but they're not having to kind of think about it. Remember, they've been at school all day and that is a tiring day for a 4 or 5-year-old, believe me. For some children, looking at the word, sounding it out with segmenting and then blending all the letters together is just one step too many. So you might want to try something a little bit different, which won't work for all children, but if you go around the house and think of some words that are quite simple, such as door, for example, you can say, okay, let's sound out door, because they already then know what the word needs to be at the end, so they can start to understand the process of how blending works and how it relates to segmenting. So if a child is really struggling with going from recognising sounds to segmenting sounds and then blending, you might want to try it the other way around, just to get them having an idea of how it's supposed to work, and then going back to looking at the book and reading words. You could even, if you're doing that kind of game, progress it to putting the word on the door, for example, so that they can see it written down as well. It's just thinking of different ways to help your child engage with reading and engage with letters and sounding out and sticking all those letters and sounds together so that they can read words. So that is blending in a nutshell, really. If there are any other things that you want me to make videos about, please let me know in the comments below or via my social media channels, which will be at the end of this video. Don't forget to subscribe either by clicking the little subscribe button, and once you're subscribed, you can also click on the bell icon to make sure you get a notification every time I post a new video, so you never miss a thing. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.